So hello everybody, and welcome to another interview from Amicable Scientists. Today we are speaking to Uma Prajapati, who's a fashion designer, an activist, and an entrepreneur living in Auroville. She's the founder of Upasana, which is the hub of conscious fashion. Today she's here to speak to me and answer some of my questions on sustainable fashion design. Thank you, Uma, for speaking to us today, and welcome. Welcome to this interview. So please tell us a little bit about yourself and what got you into sustainable fashion.
What got me to sustainable fashion? Okay, so my name is Uma Prajapati and I was in Delhi before I came to Auroville. And I got educated in design, fashion design, and I worked in Delhi for 2 years. And I came to Auroville in 96 for 2 weeks design project, which is still on. So last 96 onwards, I have been living in Auroville in Pondicherry.
Excellent.
Southern part of India. What brought me to sustainable fashion is, I guess it would be Auroville. I knew just the fashion part of it. But when I began to live in the community, which is an international spiritual township, everything what I was doing was I was able to reflect on it as our lifestyle, as a community living over here. And fashion did not qualify with many of my reflections. And what was powerful for me was to confront farmer suicide in India. And that changed my life. I just couldn't imagine that I'm going to continue working with so-called beautiful cotton, which is, in a sense, is bloody cotton. And there is war going on that. And really celebrating my design and beauty and vanity and fashion and looking good and feeling good on the cost of what? And that shook me pretty deeply. So that's where the journey began. Meanwhile, Upasana was already on. Upasana is born in 97, and so we are 20 plus year old company. And I always had been working with Indian textile. An idea for me was to bring India through textile to Auroville, and that's what Upasana did. And that's it. It had been a pretty slow brewing of processes, which has led us today to become a center of conscious fashion in India. And the collateral of work has become as a backdrop for us to be able to stand in that position. And I feel grateful. It has not been an easy journey, but I'm surely very, very grateful about it at this moment.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll talk to you more about that, but before we get into that, how do you see this in the greater design for change? So how do you see this journey, what Upasana is doing in the greater context of the design for change?
That's a very good question, Promit. I see design as a creative space, and in this creative space is not about making life beautiful for some people who can afford it. I don't see design like that. I see design as a tool to make difference in life, to make it beautiful for all. It's very, very democratic in a way. And design is not about who can afford it and who cannot afford it. So that has, I have grown into that space being in Auroville, and I have been questioning that if fashion is what I know, or fashion is what I have been learned, what can I do? How it would change society or contribute to that? So in my industry, which is textile or craft and fashion, India has 54 million people served in the craft, textile and clothing sector. So we are one of the largest nation on the planet with just a human resource which is occupied and gives livelihood to this sector. So it's not light at all. And we are one of the few nations who still make what we wear. So we are a producer, but we are also consumer, which is also rare composition. Most of the world have lost their heritage of making clothes for themselves. So they buy clothes from a cheaper country, and it is a industrial commodity. In India, clothing is not an industrial commodity. It is expression of what we are and culturally what we want to be. So in that space, India has a very unique position in the planet at this moment. It had been for a long time, but now it's becoming more obvious that we need to take this legacy rather more seriously than what we have been doing. Now, 150 years back, just 150 years back, we were excelling into cotton skills and cotton trading in terms of textile and quality of textile and Dhakai, muslin and blah blah and khadi and so on. The whole legacy of excellence was coded in textile. India's export was primarily textile and spice. And now, just now, 70 years down our independence, what we are celebrating or crying about is not celebrating, of course, is farmer suicide in the sector of textile, which was our booming industry just 150 years back. What happened? How did we fall that low? And how did we allow that to happen? It had been my question. That is still we are one of the country who has a skill of no man can imagine, no country can even think about it. We are the only nation who can make khadi today in the world. Africa had the tradition, Japan had it, none of them, one is forgotten, one cannot afford it. But India has millions of people working in the sector of khadi. So these are the legacy which blows my mind off, and I often wonder that why we cannot excel today. What has stopped us? Why we are talking about farmer suicide in the industry which has been so fantastic revenue for us, and today can't even give a bread and butter to a farmer. So these are very kind of a puzzles I live in. I wake up and I sleep with it, and it's very, very uncomfortable.
I can imagine. I can imagine. So that then directly leads me to my next question. What to you is sustainable fashion? And how is Upasana different in its conception from the traditional textile conglomerates?
Yeah. So what we have done is that when I began to work with cotton farmers, which happened in 2006 and 2007, that was a period I was getting involved with 600 farmers, organic cotton farmers in southern part of India, in Tamil Nadu, outside Madurai. That changed my life. And I'm so glad that it happened to me. If I had not done that project, I would not have known what goes into farming. What goes into farming of growing a cotton, which we all boost upon, wearing cotton and so-called beautiful cotton and this cotton and that cotton. And I just saw that it was very close to being a bloody cotton. And I learned that India has only 3% of a cotton seed, which is our indigenous cotton seed, is left in our nation. 97% of it is genetically modified. And that has led the farmer suicide in the country. And today that we don't even have a seed which we can produce ourselves. So we go to the market and buy a very, very sophisticated, a very expensive seed. Then we have to buy the insecticide. Then we have to buy the pesticide. Then we have to get the tons of liters of water to grow them. And if any of this composition anytime fails, farmer has nothing left than to drink the same bloody poison, and they die. And this is the way the industry has coded itself. And it just freaked me out. I thought I was watching a horror movie and it was real life. Couldn't imagine to continue doing fashion. So I began to critically start talking about it, and I went everywhere and screamed, whether it was a international seminars or national conference or going to the design school or in my own studio, and I began to talk about a lot, and people were just shocked to hear what I had to say. And of course, it was an activist period of me, that being an entrepreneur and being an activist and being a creative person had been made a very interesting composition of so-called Uma as a personality for me. And I feel very grateful about that. I look at design as a creative solution platform, and I am a entrepreneur, so I know how money works, and I'm activist, and I want to serve my country and planet, and this is just a right ground where a social enterprise can stand up for. So when I was seeing Upasana's journey, I saw that fashion has so much power of trillions dollars business, and so-called the most creative industry, at least it likes to project itself like that we are the most creative industry. And in that creativity, we tend to rob people's creativity rather badly. So we talked about beauty, but in the process, we create a lot of ugliness to our society, and we hide them. So this dimension had been a bothersome space. So when when I begin to talk and really making noise, many people came on board. It also costed us a bankruptcy as a company. Upasana went organic in 2010 and launched Paruti as India's first organic brand. So-called India never had that time any organic brand. Most of the organic brand was making T-shirt and selling in Europe or selling outside India. It was in the export market. In domestic market, we didn't even understand organic food. So forget about clothing. Clothing is still nobody understands. This is a, oh, I get it. You should eat organic to be healthy. But food, clothing, why? And why fashion? Why fashion has to be conscious? Just look good, buddy, and be happy with it, right? So this atmosphere where my country was more involved into cheaper the better and glitter the better. Fashion is all about how much glitter it makes and how cheap it is, and then you're done. You just make loads of money and be happy in life. And I was absolutely opposite of that. So that was a pretty hard or newer language that what happened to this auntie which gone mad in her head, what she's talking and why she's talking like that, but she does make sense. So very empathetic response initially. Oh, poor Uma, but she's a very nice girl. She does a lot of social work, and she's an NGO basically, which we are not. We are not an NGO. We run a company, and I believe in that it's a social company which will change the world, not the NGO sector and not the corporate. Both are very isolated spaces, and they don't even talk to each other. And that's not the future option is. And very early, I saw that it is the future will belong to social businesses, and it was 2007, and nobody says social business, social enterprise, and what do they do and what they should be doing and how do they work. I have no idea, but I see it. I have no idea what they do and how they work, but I see that I will go into that direction. And guess what? 7 years down the line, it became a trend of the day. Everybody's talking about social enterprise. And conscious fashion was like, why would you say things like that? I don't get it. So from that struggle, I had told myself that, calm down, lady. When you are 80, things would be different and it will all will look a little better. Right now, it's a little too early. So just keep quiet and keep going. And that is what I told that story to myself. And today, it's just 10 years down the line, conscious fashion is a new black. Everybody's talking about being conscious in fashion. It's, wow, I didn't have to turn 80. Oh my God, this is fast. So I'm really happy about the changes which has happened. This power, like coming back to your question, I really took you for a side walk.
I absolutely enjoyed it.
I'm very good in telling story, and then I take people for a walk. So coming back to discussion of that what is this conscious fashion and how does what has been Upasana's work around it? I have been seeing it, this power of the sector and the power of the country of India to play in this sector. They both had been so powerful, and I thought it was dumb not to make use of it. That if fashion is so powerful and it's so creative and it has a commitment to beauty, why wouldn't that beauty be integral? Why wouldn't be a beauty for everybody? People who wear them, but also people who make them.
Absolutely.
Why there is ugliness for people who make them, and why the beauty is partial. But did we mean it? So I begin to ask people, do you mean to be beautiful all by yourself and you don't want to include in that beauty to anybody else? And rarely I found people who would say, I don't care. Everybody cared. Only they did not know. So I began to change my area of work, and I slowly closed down so-called normal cotton or classic cotton in our unit, and I worked only with organic cotton. Then I politically took a call that we'll work with handloom, we'll work with all the community and hand processes, not because they are fantastic, because they are my people. And if I'm not working for them, what I'm doing and why do I do fashion otherwise? If I'm not able to be their voice, what I'm fooling myself for? And I don't want to be part of the industry which does not even need to exist. Today, we make 8 billion clothes for 6 billion people. Out of 4 billion cannot afford. They are still poor. So this is irrational that for 3 billion people, we make 8 billion clothes every year. it is pure insanity for me, and I didn't want to be part of that insanity. So this has been my focus had been how will this fashion will work for its own people, and in context of being an Indian, on context of being in India or being an Indian designer, I see it's my responsibility. If I was born and brought up in Europe and I ran a company in Europe, I will work very differently. But just because I'm born in this country called India and I have a community of 54 million people who work in this sector, I'm totally at the service of them, and I'll do anything to serve them. And that has been the fashion commitment from my side. And that has changed many things, and it began to make sense to people too. And this cheaper the better and the glitter the better seems like has quietened down. And I deeply believe that we are not a poor country. India is not a poor country. If Starbucks can thrive in India, we can very well pay off a weaver. And why wouldn't we?
Absolutely.
Why wouldn't we?
Yeah. Absolutely. Seeing that fashion was your vehicle towards social change, how do you think the growing notion of sustainability and how people have suddenly become conscious of sustainability over time has impacted conscious fashion? Do you think that there is a shift in market from traditional fashion to conscious fashion, or do you think there will be a market for both? How do you see this developing?
So there are two things, Promit, that today conscious fashion is more trend than real. And fashion fraternity likes to make trend out of everything. And I'm very concerned that we have made trend out of sustainability itself. So I am not sure what is the next year trend. And this is scary. This is scary that if sustainability becomes a trend, what do you do with it? And how do you actually hold on that this trend can last forever? Then it's become so oxymoron in a way. So when I'm called to conferences and they say, oh, but we have a green conference and that's a theme of the year and we want you to speak about it, it's worrisome in a way, but good part of the story is that it's mainstream. So we can take leverage as much because everybody understands it mentally. In action, we don't understand anything. We go and do a very stupid buy, but we talk about conscious fashion. So this thing of that there is a divide in our intention and action which exists. I see that in coming future, slowly it will bridge and it will become more narrow and narrow. But right now there is a gap still when we talk about conscious and mainstream, and this is what everybody wants to wear it. It soon will land. And now that when I'm talking to you and this whole outbreak of corona is in that atmosphere, the first thing will happen that this will deepen the space of being conscious, not only in clothing, but in lifestyle, in food, the way we treat ourselves and where we treat our others. This will become mainstream, or maybe already has become mainstream in people's heart, that all these billions of people locked in their home, what are we doing? We're at least looking at ourselves. And I feel I feel deeply gratified for this moment of reflection which humanity is forced with. Mm-hmm. It will open up a space which will be unprecedented in the shift of consciousness for better. And it's a very, very powerful time for us to move forward. And there is only one way, a better world.
Absolutely. Speaking of the corona crisis, Upasana has come up with certain remedies as well. So could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I saw it that a mask is a new scarf. Mask is not a protection for the day. Yeah. Mask is new entry of a clothing accessory for the future. Mm-hmm. So this is going to be, Japan has mask as a culture. India, we don't have, nobody has a mask, we don't wear. We don't like to protect ourselves in a way. That's not the way we live as a humanity. But today it has changed, and it's not going to change because corona has passed by and we have forgotten. It's going to be our lifestyle, that very often we will not shy away wearing a piece of mask. So I saw that in front of me and I was looking at it. How would I make it holistic? How would I make it reusable? How can the brilliant and trillion mask is getting dumped every day today? We have a medical mask which is made out of a certain material which is one use. After that, you throw them in the dustbin. And at the same time, there is a mask crisis across the planet. Everybody's talking about good mask. So I was a little ahead in that thought process of creating a product which is reusable, and it is wellness centric, and it is protective, preventive as an immune system proactively, and not just giving you saying, oh my God, we are so scared, let's have a mask. It's no, it's not fear-based. It's not fear-based that we have to take preventive in a very, very panicked way. It is a very conscious choice of making a piece of cloth on your face to protect yourself, and it is healing. And what can be more healing than neem? In India, neem is blooming everywhere. Auroville has like tons of, I don't know how many, thousands of neem. 3 neem is in front of my house, all direction in my community. And they have a billion blooms. So that was the most natural thing to think of, that I'm not cutting trees to in a natural dye. It also happens that if we are taking resources from nature, are we replenishing them or not? So for me, neem was the most sustainable dyes to do, or tulsi for that sake, which we are also using in our clothing line. So last couple of years, Upasana had been using herbs in a dye. To take the story backward, fashion is second most polluting industry. A main reason is the dye we use, and some of the dye is as bad as a nuclear waste, and that we just leave it onto the land and we walk off as if we have nothing to do with it. We are more focused around how beautiful I made somebody look physically, and that has bothered me a lot. And apart from it, that the chemical exposure to the body, chemical exposure to the body through cosmetics and through clothing is immense, but it's taboo to talk about. This industry is so big, we don't want to talk about things like that. And I was not very sure what direction I would take, but if I won't dye clothes then. I was like, most of Upasana just goes off-white and white and off-white and some indigo and off-white again. And people are like, Uma, give me a break, some color please. I said, I'm trying to find one color which will not pollute and it still will make you look good. And it has been a divide in me that color hurts. And I'm just, not because I don't like color. I don't wear color myself. Yes, I personally, but color is nice. But how make a color which is nice for everybody, I was not finding it. So this neem and tulsi came very handy to me, where I was not only making a chemical exposure neutral, but I was making a positive charge on the body in terms of healing vibration. And I feel like, wow, that's changed. That's like shifting, completely turn it around 180 degree. So this became a Upasanas of clothing line, of one of the perennial line today, which goes on and on all the time. So when coronavirus outbreak was, I took neem and I took one more fabric which has a silver grid. Silver grid, silver has been used by royalty or rich people in general in their cutlery as the kind of protection it provides to the body. So in textile, there had been research going on that if I make the grid this way silver and this way grid and lock it, there is a magnetic field around, and that also protects. So that textile, I happen to have it in my stock just before Corona. I took that and I took neem and saying, I'm going to make mask out of it. And everybody thought like, auntie, oh my God, another thing, now Uma is going to make mask. So everybody were like, leave her alone, you know. So I had to do it very secretly and got few people. And as soon as the country was getting into lockdown, so I got 2-3 people and saying, you know what, this is it. Everybody will work from home. And we did overnight strategy. I'm good in strategy. So we planned it all out and the mask began. And the purpose was to make a few thousand masks and give it to Auroville community, give it to friends around, and distribute in ashram and Pondicherry, and that's it. That's good enough, and we will have something to do in life. Right now, who wants clothes? Nobody is going to buy clothes, so let's just do something which makes us happy. Well, that mask project has gone We have a request from Europe, from US, different part of India in the middle of the lockdown, and we are just waiting for when Postal Service says, yeah, it opens, and tomorrow it's opening. So there's a big effort to just plan all the packets and ship it to all over and get going. And it has created more jobs today. Many women joined us in the middle of lockdown where people were losing jobs. We were creating jobs. And we had that, we still have this health volunteer, which has an official letter saying that we are not fooling around on the road. We are just collaborating and sending community the material to make masks and picking up what it is ready. And we do it 1 hour a day. So police have allowed and give that permission to volunteer. So they are like, they secretly distribute things and plug things, and then one room somebody sits with the hot iron and do the sanitization and packaging, and somebody's printing quietly, cutting the labels. So everything is hand done, and the small sachets are getting ready, and they are done in thousands. And the loom begin to restart, the silver grid loom, the neem fabric. It's I tell you, it was not to create money. It actually cannot create money or cannot pay salary to people in a terms Upasana works, but it brought such a sense of meaning, and it brought such a purpose. And we are into a local newspaper, we are into state newspaper, we are getting into India level newspaper. We have gone yesterday international to. What? Everybody's talking about mass. What the heck? And whole of Upasana is quietly got involved into mass. So it became even mainstream in Upasana. So that happens. It just
Absolutely. Absolutely lovely. I mean, I look forward to wearing one of these masks as well.
It's really sweet. It's the most simple one. I didn't do a design. I could have done a very good design piece, but there was no time. So we just went ahead and did that material shift, and it's very good quality. So go on washing and wearing for years.
Excellent, excellent. Sounds lovely. To switch topics slightly, from an operational and functional perspective, how is Upasana A, sustainable, and B, how does it fit into the Auroville theme? From an operational perspective, how the textile is produced and things like that.
So as a process wise, yes, we are sustainable. We even have a line of clothes which has most of our clothes, not line of clothes, it has a zero chemical exposure in its whole process, where clothing is sometimes is very heavily charged with the processes, which is very it's toxic. So that way we have managed to reduce. We have made it community centric. So in our clothing, people are very center of it. So it is made by hand, woven by hand, or made khadi, which is even textile thread is made by hand, not coming from industry or machine. And there are a lot of processes which take effort to link it to empowerment, whether it is a women empowerment in the village, or it is a craft empowerment, or it is a weavers and so on. So there is a constant effort to give the possibilities of value addition, not to machine but to hand. So that makes it Upasana in a one way conscious. For me, my sustainability is very tied to people and planet, and people are very focused of it. My sustainability is not about how much certification we got and who said what and who validated what. No, I have not gone that way, and I chose not to go that way. When I was working with 600 farmers, I had a proposal that certification for them had to come from Switzerland, and it costed some few lakhs of rupees at that time. And I was wondering, if I give that lakhs to farmer itself, then give them a paper of that money. And what is important? What is important in the rural community is that paper of validation is important. So in one way that I have defined my sense of being sustainable and conscious is also being a value of organization which is ethical and not so much paper driven, but really look at it. Is it right? Is that sounds right? Is that feels right? And if it that's so, I kind of qualify myself that I will go this way. and I have let go of a paying organization, big organization, to tell me that, Uma, you're doing good job, and here is my paper says so. I somehow didn't believe in it. So it was one of the focus for me was to remain in India and work in Indian market, was that I was very convinced that I actually have no time. I don't want to spend time waiting for somebody else to do an endorsement for what I am doing in my life. I have no time for it. I don't think like that. So my country believes me that what I do, at least they can come and see what I do. And I chose India to be my market, and that has where made Upasana as a conscious fashion hub today. If I was continued with I used to do export before, and I stopped it in 2006. For some strange reason, it came to me that it's over. We are not going to into export. We will work in the Indian market. And guess what? 2008 recession happened. Mm-hmm. So everybody had trouble except Upasana. We were like happy going lucky where whatever we were doing. It was again pure luck. So that and my focus was that if India and China does not fixes their home affair business, world can talk about sustainability, but livestock sits in these two countries. So how can Europe change planetary movement if India and China does not participate? And if India and China has to participate, who will come and participate if not Indian or Chinese? So in my country, I'm going ahead. So again, I saw a picture which was a bit different, and I said, I'm going to take my small drum and start drumming and start saying things all over my country with something which I think it's right at this moment. And that's what I did for 10 years. And guess what? Everybody says this company is conscious. Maybe the hell lot of noise we have made around it, that must have done that. But I also, I said we also did some good work, and just not the noise we have made, but we have also done work. And my experiment has been that if you continue to do good, do you flop as a company? Do you flop as a business? Because why business is so scared of doing good? Why do we have to cut cost everywhere of fear of not being competitive, or we will be left out of the market? And so much of a reason it has, and it likes to be competitive, and that competitive means do what others are doing in the similar or even cheaper way and somehow be in the market. And that fear has costed a lot to us. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to part of that sequence or that song. So I created my own song. And India market has worked for us. Now I also saw that it's difficult to be very not righteous, very conscious in all the way. It becomes expensive. Things becomes expensive.
Absolutely.
And market economy, which is designed not to pay manufacturer. I don't know whether you are conscious of this part of being in the scientist group. In market economy, this economy is designed not to pay people who make things. It goes to the market itself, it goes to the shares, and it goes to distributions and so on, but not to the maker. So whenever I had to pay the maker, I knowing that data, I used to feel like, nay, isko to dena hai. I mean, we have to pay. We can't negotiate here. We will see how much money it makes eventually, but we can't negotiate here. So I would not negotiate with the weavers and the artisan to say, acha, isko cheap bana do, make something and give me some cheaper options. And no, it does not work. The very purpose of it is to honor them and see if that market can take it. So my thing is saying, yes, it does. It is possible. There are very few companies who is doing like that. So it becomes a little expensive. But if you're really going mainstream, this will become a norm. And we will also not think about buying a t-shirt in the same price of paying a coffee in the Starbucks. That's insane. Why would you do that? There is so much of a processes involved and life involved. And why would a t-shirt has to cost us a cup of coffee? And how the hell we have bought that story? And who sold us that story? And why didn't we question it? Why would India sell piece for $3.99 and still give discount of it? So my theory is that please don't buy on discount. You are signing up a campaign of promoting poverty. Don't do that. Don't promote this non-sustainable behavior which is constantly luring us. So these are it's more of like having this conversation with oneself and asking consumer to pause before you take a buy is what has become my lifetime job now, that I'm writing a book called Conscious Buying for Dummies. And I believe that everybody buys, everybody does. We need, buying is such a primitive art of love for us now, that how can I make that sacred? How can I make it empowering? So I'm working on that. Book is soon coming up, and we say conscious clothing to conscious living. And yeah, that's a journey. Again, I took you for a sidewalk.
Excellent. It was super inspiring to hear about the journey. So the final point I would like to touch upon in this interview is some of your social development projects. So could you tell us which ones are closest to you and some that have really affected people? I'd love to hear about this.
Yeah, okay. So it's in a design journey when Upasana was happy, small company in the forest of Auroville, doing good and making profit. We have been profit making company and sustainable, doing good and making profit, paying our bills nicely. That's what has happened. In between, one bankruptcy happened, but we survived that and we are alive. So good news. Now, what has happened in this journey, when there was a social unrest or some need, like 2004, we had tsunami. Just 6 kilometers down, Auroville was our coastline and brutally affected. Like Chennai to Nagapattinam area is like horror movie. And I was absolutely spellbound that what can I do? What can I do? And I was just asking this question constantly to myself. And I'm not trained in a social sector. I'm trained in a design and I run a company. And I just felt I had to do something. So we ended up creating a tiny doll called Tsunamika. And Tsunamika is a very, very teeny 5-6 centimeter tall doll. And these dolls are made out of scraps of fabric lying around. So I had picked up the small fabrics lying around the studio or went to Tsunami Rehabilitation Center and asked people if they want to do something. And from that day till now, that is 15 years old story, it's one of the only project post-tsunami is still alive. And it has gone international. It has got the UNESCO's recognition. It got the President Award of Excellence on Contribution to Business and Society, and got into BBC, got into NDTV, and got. What I'm saying is that it became big, and whole purpose was to do trauma counseling with the community who needed that counseling. They were crying and eating and sleeping and getting up and crying again and eating and sleeping, and that cycle was going on. And when I went to the village, I didn't know what to do. So would just sit next to them and saying, "Enna venu? What can you do? What do you know?" And every time they would say, "Theriyade, I don't know." And only thing was hitting me that if one loses faith in life, how do I restore that? And I'm not God, I'm just one mortal like them, and I'm as feel in despair than like them. But what can I do when they seem to be not knowing anything? They simply have lost trust in life itself. Tsunamika doll came up very handy. We began to make doll, and she didn't have a name by then. We ended up making millions of them. Right now, we have crossed 5 million, and now we have stopped counting. So still women make dolls, and she has become a symbol of hope. There is a story written to her, they've gone into 7 international translation. Last year, Tsunamika became a voice of ocean and ecology. So that's a new wave is coming up. And my whole purpose is to link it to Blue Planet or give it to BBC or do something and saying, here is the story, and she's born in the ocean and she's committed to the ocean, and do something about it. ride her, take her to the level. So I'm working on building Tsunamika as an icon, and icon for ecology and women empowerment. So that has been my first social project, which blew roof my head. I was the first one who was completely uh, inspired to see the power of it, and cried in despair that, oh my God, this can be so powerful. I never knew that. I never knew a small intervention can become so powerful. And I learned design for social responsibility in a real time while doing it. And I was the first one who was learning it. I was the first one who was crying it, and I was first one who was executing at the same time. And it blew my mind that power of design can be so wow. And I did not know that this would continue. I had designed it for 1 year, and 1 year after to shut shop and go home and say bye to everybody. It's shameless that they still make Tsunamika. All the 6 villages continue to do their things. They still make radio television interview and whatnot, and they talk to media and blah blah blah. All goes on. It's a bit embarrassing for me, but it goes, and it's still Tsunamika has been inspiring. Second project I did was again textile based. If you notice, is most of my social intervention have textile based. Me being a fashion designer, the material I know is textile. So I ran a green campaign for India called Small Steps for Big Change, and it is a bag project which runs in many villages where women makes bag, a beautiful international quality bag, which when it comes to studio, it becomes a campaign, no more a product. Similar thing happened in Tsunamika, that we made this doll, but we never sold the doll. We gave away doll, and belief was that if she is a symbol of hope, nobody is rich enough to buy hope, and nobody is slimy enough to sell hope. And I'm not the one who sells hope. I can't. It's priceless. So I'll give it to people. If they think that hope is worth while supporting, they can contribute to the project which does that, and we will make more dolls, but we will not sell them. And that unleashed a power of another kind. Now it is a autopilot project. It runs by itself. Nobody supports it. Nobody funds it. It just runs by itself. And ladies who makes doll gets paid. That project had been became a social enterprise from day one, and it's functioning. It has a community which is connected to it. Then I worked with weavers in Benares. That became a big project when Mr. Modi got into power. He won from election from Benares, and our profile was shared with them for sure. And the day the month he got into power, the second month I was invited to Ministry of Textile talk as a advisory board from southern part of India for my work in Benares. And that was a huge honor. That I simply had not expected that this can happen. Then farming project, where working with the 600 farmers and going organic, that changed my life, changed my company, changed everything what I do today. And that because this proximity with the farmer and looking their life closely and completely feeling vulnerable about it. And I needed to act on it. And that's what the action has been. So currently how I see a forward going is the power of conscious business. And if business become conscious, and if that we are able to support, and it is just a highway of goodness. And that power, only business has it. The intelligence, the brightest mind of the planet is owned by industry. And what they do is that they do very silly things. Imagine if they are doing some good things, and if they are used to serve society, wow. So I feel very high when I think about it.
Excellent. Congratulations on the success you've achieved so far, both as a social activist and as an entrepreneur. It was absolutely inspiring speaking to you. Thank you for taking the time out and speaking to Amicable Scientists.
Thank you.
Lovely. It was lovely. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Bye-bye. See you.
Bye. Bye. See you.